Don't compare, like, how am I going to do it like Johanna or like Jamie or like this person. You're just, like, you don't have to be anybody else other than who you are. And that who you are now isn't going to do that, but that you can grow. And that your capacity can stretch.
I am so excited today that you guys get to spend a little bit of time with one of my favorite people, Johanna Mockett. And Johanna and I have worked together for a few years now, and she's a $500,000 earner. How long have I been mentoring you now?
About 12 years.
12 years, awesome. And when we met, you were
22
and single, and now she's a mother of 4 beautiful girls and just a strong woman in business, and just a great example to females that want to be business owners, be leaders, and make an impact. So, Johanna, tell us a little bit about your background kind of before becoming an entrepreneur.
So growing up, I'm the middle of 5 kids, and both of my parents are chiropractors, and they own their own medical practice. And so I grew up hearing and seeing my parents talk about business. And I think that created a really entrepreneurial spirit in me early on. And, you know, I started my first business when I was 12, a babysitter's club. And I was really, you know, you can't really get a job at 12, but right. I always wanted to make my own money. I just love the idea of making my own money, you know? And so I started this babysitter's club, and I loved it, and it was really fun. Made good money for 12. And then I went off to, you know, high school and college. I got a job waitressing, and I waitressed all through college. And when I graduated from school, I started working for my parents' business. And I realized that if I was going to work for my parents' business, I'd be an employee for a long time, because my dad's really healthy and he runs the thing. And I knew that he would, you know, I just had this feeling very early on that I wanted to be in control of my life. Yeah. I wanted to be in control of my time, of my income. That's what I saw my parents do. And so but I didn't know how, you know, I'm 22. I don't have money. I don't have like an idea. I'm not like creative or inventive. You know, so I had all these big dreams and really no direction. And so at the time, I was just waiting tables, and you kind of are just kind of waiting tables in the meantime, but I didn't have anything else I was really going after. I thought maybe I could be a famous actress or something fun and exciting, but all these big dreams. And I was just really, really, honestly, it was just, I think, a gift from God that I was introduced to, you know, really working with you and seeing the opportunities that I could be a wife and a mom and significant in the world and contribute and help people and have control and freedom and all those things. And so that's kind of.
Yeah, I remember when we met, you know, I left being an employee and started as an entrepreneur at 22 years old too. And she was waiting tables, you guys. I worked at Bally Total Fitness, a health club. And so, you know, you're young, but you really knew that you wanted more out of life, and, you know, that you wanted more control of your time for being a mom, to be able to have your kids come first. And not, for me especially, I wanted to be able to be at all their games and their recitals and not have some other person's schedule dictate my time with my kids. And so when I met you, you know, I kind of saw a lot of myself in you, except for you were, you know, super, just, you know, always positive, always excited, always happy. And one of the things that I loved about working with you in the beginning was, and till this day, is that you're so coachable, easy to train. And so, you know, coming in, I remember one night you had come to my house, and you were just kind of starting out, and you're sitting on my living room floor, kind of at my feet, asking me question after question. And I just remember that night kind of being a turning point for you, that you know, knew you kind of wanted to do more, but you just kind of took off in personal growth after that. So what happened there? So I've always struggled with kind of making decisions. And that's something that I wish that I didn't struggle with, because I've always heard successful people make decisions fast. Quick, yeah.
But I always just want to make the right decision. And so I feel like, what if I make the wrong one? And I, at that time, I really thought that what I wanted was to be an actress. And really what I wanted was significance. And so I thought that was a way to find it. And I love the idea of film and the story and the struggle. And I thought, I think I could be good at that, you know, and I love performing. And
I remember you were taking some
acting classes. I'd been a dancer growing up, and so theater, and I thought this could be something that I think my needs could get met. I think I could be good at. And so I was really wrestling with, do I pursue business or do I pursue being an actress? Yeah. And it was like, and I knew people would always tell me that you really have to sell out to one thing to win. And I felt like, which one do I sell out to? Do I sell out to being an entrepreneur? Do I sell out to pursuing acting? And so when I came to your home and I'm sharing with you my struggle and I was like, okay, so here's the thing. I really want to be this like big time successful woman in business, but I also really want to be an Academy Award winning actress. Can I do both? And you didn't ever tell me no. You said, well, what you want to do is you want to think about your life. Yeah. You know, at the end of your life, when you look back and think about, you know, what you want people to say about you and the legacy that you're leaving and the marriage that you've had and the relationship with your children that you've had and the difference that you've made in the world. And you really want to think about, like, what do I really want my life to have meant and done, and which path is going to give me that. And I didn't make the decision in the moment, but it really made me think about which path is going to give me the life that I really want. And so what happened was, as I started thinking about, you know, the difference, and I started looking around at the people in either industry that I was about to pursue, and the marriages that they had, and the relationships with their kids.
What does it look like 20 years from now? Yeah.
What does it look like down the road? You know, and in the environment that I was in with the leadership that I saw, you know, in pursuing business, I saw them, at least in the environment we were in, I saw their marriages so strong. Yeah. I saw them talk so highly about their spouses, and I saw the lives of their children and how they were just thriving. And I saw the difference they were making in the world and how they were taking people and changing their lives, you know? And I just thought, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I just felt like I could make a bigger impact on a larger scale in more people's lives doing that. And I could have a better family life as well. And so I sold out. And then whenever you commit to anything, you take off, you know?
Yeah, the first step to greatness is total commitment.
Yep.
And that's kind of what happened. I saw with you. You said, okay, you know what, you really thought on, like, what is my vision for my life? What do I really want out of life? And kind of started to develop that, where most people kind of just think, what feels good right now? What will make me have fun right now? Or what will make me money right now? Yeah. And they don't ponder, you know, long-term enough of what they really want their life to look like. And then, you know, that's vision. And then taking each day with that, you know, end in mind. But you said a lot of, you know, different things. You know, you talked about that you kind of looked at their lives. And, you know, I remember for years I was asked during the summertime to go speak at this thing at Pepperdine. It was like a leadership school. And these were young people from, you know, high school, even 18 years old, up to 25 years old college students. And they had a mentoring day. And on the mentoring day, there was different tables, and the kids would switch every, you know, few minutes, and they would be able to go to ask any questions to people in different industries and stuff. And these children, these college students would come up to me and say, I just graduated with an accounting degree. Should I go into law? I don't want to be an accountant. Or things like that. Yeah. And I would say, well, why don't you, instead of just going back to school, instead of just wasting more time, why don't you go and find someone who's in that field that is 10 years or 20 years down the road, and spend some time with them and pick their brain and see if that's really what you want your life to look like, and those things that you want to have for your family. And it's just so crazy that people waste so much time just kind of being blown around with whatever whim or idea or stuff that comes into our mind through social media. Friends, family are putting, you know, telling us we should do this or we should do that. And I see kids graduate college and they don't want to go into that field, or people that have spent 20 years, 10 years at a job, and they realize this is not giving them any type of satisfaction or making an impact. So I love that you did that. that you kind of invested, first that you went to a mentor and they challenged you to do it, but that you invested the time in yourself to figure out what's going to make you happy. And you just got to work after that. Again, you were single back then, young female, in a very male-dominated industry. How was that?
Interesting. I think that being a single young female in a male-dominated industry, it didn't really, there were times where I felt intimidated, but I kind of liked the challenge.
Nice.
And I felt like, okay, if I just know more than they do, then I can win too.
Yeah.
And I never felt like, I never saw it as a disadvantage. I saw it as an advantage. And what it did was it really made me like be a student of the business. And it really made me feel like if, people will listen to me if they see that I know more than they do, or they see that I believe in what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Your conviction is one of your biggest strengths. It's whoever's the most sure wins. But you just, if I'm talking to you know that you're passionate about what, Johanna knows what she's talking about because you can feel it. So I love that. But I remember being 22, and again, we're in the financial kind of arena, and walking in, and it was the end of 99, and it was mostly men, twice my age, that were making all the money. And I remember not feeling like I know nothing about any of this stuff. I just know these are good people, helping people, and there's money to be made here, and so how did you get past that? To be able to compete with those guys and not feel that intimidation anymore.
Yeah. Honestly, even sometimes today, I can feel a little bit intimidated and feel like, how can I compete? Sometimes I'll feel like, it's being a mom and having children, and I think like they don't have to think about all the same things I have to think about. They could just put their head down and work, and no one thinks they're a bad dad. Or, the dad shows up to the school event, they're like, what a great dad. But if the mom misses one, they're like, where's the mom? And so sometimes I can let myself think that.
Yeah.
And I decided to just change that script in my head and be like, that's what's my best asset. My best asset is that I am a mom and that I know how to like multitask or I know how to juggle a lot of different things.
Time management. We got to get good at that.
And I started to think like, okay, I started to tell myself I can get more done than the average person, and they might waste time. And honestly, like, I think what happened was I just decided that I was going to win anyway. Even if I felt intimidated, even if I felt like, gosh, I don't know if I have as much time to compete and to work as they do, because I have all these other things to think about and things that I want to do, I didn't want to sacrifice family for business, and I just had to believe that I could do both. Yeah. And I started to realize, like, I'm not competing with these guys anyway. I'm competing with the life. I just want a great life. Right. I want a great life. And I think I can have that. And even now with having my fourth baby and thinking like, how do I do it now with 4 and the kids having a lot of activities and then also having a newborn, and then also still wanting to really win bigger and being like, I know there's more in me. And when my mind starts to go to that place of like, how am I going to do it all? I think like, well, I've always done it before. Yeah. So I'm going to figure it out. Yeah, I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to have these windows of time of like, okay, it's just managing time. And I really learned that from you. Putting in the calendar the things that are the most important first. The date nights, the mini honeymoons, the, time with my kids, the dance competitions, all those things, put those in first, the family evenings and all those things. And then here's when I'm going to work. And then what I realized was that actually made me better and more effective. Yeah. Because when I was at work, it was like, if I'm going to be away from my kids, if I'm going to miss out on tucking them in bed tonight, I'm going to close business. Like, I'm not going to be with this family and not get a result, right? Like, I'm here, we're going to do it now because I'm not coming back, until next year for your annual review, and I just realized like, I was more effective with my time because I valued it so much. Right. And so I felt like now I can compete because of just the mindset, You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
You know that you're more mentally tough
Yes.
than like the pansies who, like, oh.
And I wasn't going to waste time. I wasn't going to waste time. I was going to like get it done. And I just feel like I realized that like what I was competing with is I wasn't competing with a man. I wasn't competing with a woman. I was just competing with what I wanted for my life.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And maybe it will take me a little bit longer to hit 1 million than for them, but I know I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get there doing like loving my life and loving my family.
So what was one of the hardest things that you've had to deal with as an entrepreneur, as a female entrepreneur? One of the hardest struggles or things that you had to overcome?
Honestly, one of the hardest struggles, I think, was sometimes, I think sometimes being married and not being married is a challenge. I mean, that's a different challenge, you know? But in terms of like feeling like sometimes feeling like, should I take a step back or should I slow down in order to allow, how do I word this? I don't know how to articulate it. Like, okay.
That you don't outshine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, feeling like
guilty.
Feeling guilty. Like, I sometimes
you're strong,
I just, yes.
Female.
I want to be able to like take the reins and go for it. And I want to be able to, I feel like, but being a woman, sometimes you feel like you're supposed to be meek and quiet. And sometimes I was afraid of my own drive and afraid of my own ambition and afraid of what someone might think of me. Mm-hmm. Like, are they going to think that she's, you know, overtaking or overpowering her husband? Mm-hmm. Is she, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it makes sense to them, but I feel you.
And I just like felt like was that okay? Like, right. I want to still be a good wife, and I want to still be a good mom, and I want to still be submissive and humble, but I feel like I'm good at this, and I want to be able to just go do it and run with it.
Yeah, and you love it.
And I love it.
I love it, and it makes you happy, and you are a good wife, and you are a good mom. But I remember thinking that same thing. I went through it one time when I was like, I have to buy a minivan. I want the Tesla, but I need a minivan too because I
fit them all in. Yeah.
You know, it's just because, you think like, am I fitting in all those roles well? Mm-hmm. You know, and so what made you kind of get over that?
Also, I remember even feeling a lot of guilt for even wanting to work. Yeah. Like when my daughter first started kindergarten, and I would take her to school and I would wear like yoga pants, and then I'd change into my business clothes in the car because I didn't want the other women to know that I was working. I felt a lot of shame about about working. And I felt like, I think I just grew up in an environment where women were home. But I felt like God gave me these desires and this drive and this ambition and gift, and I was supposed to use it. Yes. But how do I juggle that?
The lives you've touched already, and you're going to touch.
And I thought, like,
and look at how your 4 beautiful daughters, look at you as this woman that is a great mom, but also changing lives. Mm-hmm.
I have 4 daughters. Like, I am their example. I want to be their example, and I don't want them to feel like they can't pursue their dreams because they're a girl. You know, but I felt a lot of shame, you know, and feeling like, oh, I'm supposed to be home and I'm supposed to be able to be at all the things and do all the things. And so I'd try to hide it and like play it down and play it small. And I would say like, I have like a part-time business, even though I was working all the time, you know, and people would be like, well, oh, so you work part-time? I'm like, well, I work
from home
whenever I want, I work whenever I want, Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, you work from home. Like, well, I have an office, meanwhile
Yes.
I'm running this like big operation. I'm like,
Yes.
and so then I started to realize that like my family didn't have to look like any other family, and that like I spend a lot of great time with my kids on my schedule.
You do.
And I
More
also
than anybody that has a 9 to 5, I think.
Exactly. And I also can like I started to realize like it wasn't a bad thing to have drive, to have ambition, to have dreams, that those were things that God put in me. And then I think having other examples like you and women that were winning big and great moms, I realized I could do it and I didn't have to be ashamed of it.
Yes.
And that was a gift. And then in terms of in my marriage, that's something I'm still working on. And I think that what I realized was, and I'm not saying that's how I was raised, it probably just how I perceived.
Right.
That that I was supposed to be meek and submissive and quiet and let him take the lead. And I believe all those things, like in the sense of I want my husband to be the strong leader of our family and a spiritual leader and all these things. And we're really a team. But I felt like in this area of business that it was something that I loved and that I was good at and that I was strong in, and I wanted to just kind of like take the reins and run. But sometimes I felt nervous, like, will people think that I'm too strong and that somehow I would outperform or outshine my husband.
Did you ever share that with him?
So I did. And I also felt sometimes that struggle with him of like, I felt like he felt that way. But I'm supposed to be the leader. I'm supposed to be, that's my job. And that like maybe people might think that he was less of a leader if I was good at
or a man.
this. Less of a man if my wife's good at these things and she's kind of, and so I shared with him, like, I feel like sometimes maybe I should step back to let you shine and let you lead. And he said, like, no, no, like I would never want you to stop doing what you're good at or to stop like going for it because of maybe an insecurity that I have. He's like, that's something that I have to work on. And I felt like that was really mature of him to be able to say that. And I think also mature of me to be able to share with him how I felt. Right. But it didn't mean that it went away right away, Even sometimes in meetings, I'd feel myself like wanting to just jump in and he's talking, and then I'd be like,
I never do that with him.
like trying to like calm down or like, and I could see him sometimes getting frustrated with me, and but I just wanted to so bad, like take charge and I think that the way we worked on it was really finding out like what our individual strengths were and letting each other just shine in those things, And my husband's so funny and I'm just not funny, So like let him be funny and have fun and let him like be spontaneous sometimes, and it might throw things off schedule or whatever. Right. And I've seen you and Sean do that. We have such a great example,
Are you saying I'm not funny too?
We're funny in a different way. Yeah. Usually I'm funny because I repeated something I heard Adam say, and then everyone laughs. But yeah.
We think each other's funny.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I just feel like it was, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was, I've also realized that I'm not, like what anybody else's family or marriage looks like doesn't matter. It's like what works for our family and for our marriage. And if it's like between us and God and us and each other, and if that's good and our kids are good, that's all that matters. And what anybody else's perception, that's the hardest thing, was what other people were going to think. What other people were going to think about.
We care so much about what other people think.
Yeah.
We could be sitting at church and our kids are goofing off, and
are they going to think I don't behave that or discipline them? Yeah.
But what are they thinking about?
Themselves. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right? And it's so crazy. It's just that we waste so much time and stress and worry and heartache over things like this when we could just be going after what makes us happy.
Yeah.
So, well, I remember, again, you coming up fast after that and growing, and you are MVP, the most valuable player. And, I looked out as your team of people that you mentor and coach came rushing up and kind of put you up on their shoulders. And it's so awesome that we have examples of women, strong women, that are helping people, really helping people, making a difference, changing lives, but they also can be a mom. You don't have to switch out those yoga, but that you can also have a business. And I think there's this thing out there that says, oh, you can have it all. And I don't necessarily like that sometimes, because it sends a message that you have to be, kind of one or the other. Like, you can have it all. You can have this business. You can have this stuff. And then you can also be a mom. And then people are trying to do it all. Right. And they're stressed out.
And then they feel bad if they feel like they can't do it all.
Yes, they're stressed out. They're, in therapy.
Yes.
Trying to do it all. So I don't necessarily like to send that message too much, because some people don't have the support network or whatever. But I think it's great if I think it's awesome if someone wants to be a stay-at-home mom. If someone wants to be a business leader, if someone wants to pursue their dreams, no matter what they are. But if someone does want to have it all, like what you have, being able to be, you're so strong in your faith, and you're such a great example there. And then as a mom and as a wife, just have it looks like on social media, like this pretty picture all the time. Of course it's not, we all know that. But if they did want to have it all, what would be the keys to success? What do you think would be the most important things that they should do?
I think you're so right in that we all have these different dreams. And I have my cousin, for example, her dream was to be a stay-at-home mom. And so she's doing it. And I love it.
And that's a harder job.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
That's the hardest job. Being a mother, I have in my journals, my number one job is raising the next generation, and pouring the love. And that's my number one job. That's,
100%.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And I wanted to, I want to be for sure, my number one job is my family. But I also felt like I have, just like I said, this drive, and that I want both. I want to be able, that's why being an entrepreneur is so attractive to me, because I felt like I can really have a career and have a family, but me be in charge of my time. And I'm in charge of the schedule. And so that was really what attracted me to entrepreneurship. But I think in terms of like, how can I have it all or do it all?
Yeah, without having it's a juggling act. And you and I have both learned from mistakes and learned from experience.
I've learned from overexhausting myself.
What have you learned from all these years of trying to do it?
So this is what I learned, is that I actually don't have to do it all. And sometimes I felt like being a good mom was planning the birthday parties and doing the DIYs and do it yourself, or like, bake the freshly made cookies. And I started to realize like store-bought cookies were okay. Trader Joe's has some great cookies,
Albertsons.
Yes. And so I started to just realize that I really didn't have to do it all, and that it was okay to have a support system. And I read this book called The Red Tent, and it's a fictional book, but based on the story of Jacob and all of his, being married to Leah and Rachel and all their children. And I started realizing that but I realized that it's not one person's job to raise a child. That it's okay to have support. You actually need it. And it's good for your kids to have relationships with other people. Yeah. And so if I bring in a girl has the same values that our family shares, and is excited and does crafts with my kids and reads books with them while I'm away building our business, that's okay. And it's okay if my kids spend time with their aunts and uncles and their grandparents and their cousins, while I'm over helping a family in with a financial plan, that's good, and that I didn't have to be everything for my kids. Right. I have to care. I am the foremost at caring for their spiritual needs, their emotional needs, and their financial needs. Other than that, it's okay if somebody else does the laundry and somebody else helps me prep dinner.
Hallelujah.
And somebody else, helps with picking up the dry cleaning, and that I'm in charge of.
Hold on one sec. People are going to tell us when they hear you say that, well, that's for Johanna and Jamie because they make money now.
Right.
And of course they can
afford help.
Right.
But I will tell you, I was 23 years old when I got married, and I paid for somebody, this is like kind of funny, but I just every 2 weeks I paid somebody $80 to come in and clean my little apartment.
Yeah, and if they say they can afford $80, you know, how much more money would you make? Yeah, if you didn't have the stress and the distraction and I left the sink full of dishes and the kid, you know what I mean, the kids' laundry. Could you not make $80 more
exactly.
every 2 weeks? Of course you can, but you'll have so much more happiness and peace. So definitely, I believe in delegating.
And I learned so much. Really, I learned so much from you, even with the birthday parties, where I would, say okay, I'd ask, what kind of birthday party do you want? And all would say, I want a puppy party. And so, and I even an assistant in business, having an assistant in business, so that I wasn't doing all the paperwork. It started off really part-time, but then that grew, and then I had more part-time, a spare time assistant, and then a part-time, and then it became full-time. So I'd go to my assistant, and I'd say, look up all the things on Pinterest on puppy parties, and then she'd print out the pictures, and I'd take it to my daughter, say, which one do you like, and and then she's like, I like that, and I'm like, okay, order it. And then all my daughter knows is she shows up to the party, and it's a puppy party with all the things she wanted, and she doesn't know. And I'm at the party. That's the most important thing. I'm at the party with her, and so I just realized there's a lot of things that most of the things that can I do it all? Can I have it all? No, you can't do it all. You don't have to do it all. Yes. Find out what you want to do, what the most important things are for you and for your family, and do those things.
I've kind of had the philosophy of, if it doesn't grow my faith, my family, or my business, can it be delegated? When I'm at work, I want to be pouring into people. I want to be making a difference. I want to be growing my company. When I'm with my, church and stuff, I want to be pouring in there. And when I'm with my kids, I don't want to be scrubbing toilets.
Right.
I want to be
with them.
Quality times with my kids. Yes. And so you learn to delegate. And like I said, you do that at your income bracket or whatever, but the more you can get off of your plate. And so what this looks like, guys, is make a list of your resources. Who cares about you and who cares about your children? Maybe, sometimes, my husband has younger brothers, and they were teenagers, older teenagers, and, they can't watch my 4 kids while I'm out of town, right? They can't handle that. But you know what? If I have, something big on a Saturday morning and one of my kids has a baseball game and I say, Uncle Mimi's coming to the game today, they're fired up that I'm missing their baseball game because Uncle Mimi's coming.
Exactly.
So what are the resources? And make a list of that so that you're not feeling guilty, that you're not feeling stressed out. Those guilty feelings and that time wasted.
That's what wastes time.
It wastes time, wastes energy. You have this stress. Am I a good mom?
Yes.
Am I good? And then that mommy guilt is
strong.
It's destructive.
It's so destructive, and it's not productive, and it's not real.
Right.
And that was, my kids were in a theater production and they had 7 performances. I cannot go to 7 performances of the same show.
Yeah, 4 of them.
But so what I did was I found, okay, Grandma and Grandpa are going to go to 1. Aunt and Uncle are going to go to 2. This one's going to go to 3. And then I'm going to go to the one that you're the main star of, and so I just realized, I could delegate things. And people will say, oh, well, you're lucky, you have family. Well, family doesn't have to be blood.
Yes.
You can find good
resources,
quality relationships. I had a single mom, reach out to me in my organization and say, what do I do Tuesday nights? I want to come to this training class, but I don't have anyone help with my daughter. And I said, well, you find these resources around you.
Yeah.
Your daughter is well behaved. She's amazing. She's awesome. Find someone who's like, just wants to, someone you trust. Find someone you trust that can come in and be there Tuesday nights, you know, so you could go learn and grow.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's good for you. It's good for your daughter to see you learning and growing. It's good for your daughter to see you excited.
You said something earlier. You said, if I can find someone that has similar values to our family, that's doing crafts with my kids, right? You and I both don't have a nanny. We both have 4 little kids. I have 1 teenager on top of that. So, woo! That's a whole nother deal.
I haven't started that yet. I'm not ready.
It's a new era. But my daughter, my 14-year-old, she, at church there's people, or at the school maybe your maybe friends of yours that have kids at a similar age, and when there's something important that you need to be at business-wise, maybe it's a play date with their friends.
Right.
But there's this lady that was a kind of Sunday school teacher or something for Daisy, and she got sick. She was in the hospital, kind of a family emergency that she had, and my daughter baked cookies and brought them over to her house, and she sent Daisy a thank you letter. This is my friend Jen. She's just a caring, wonderful woman, and like you said earlier, it kind of takes a village. But Daisy opened that thank you card and read it, and she goes, "I love that I have role models, and so many of them." And it hit me so hard, and I called my friend Jen and I told her, I'm like, thank you so much for being that one in the village that made a difference. But whether you're an entrepreneur or not, if you're a stay-at-home mom, I know my teenager daughter is not going to always listen to me.
Right. You got to call in the mentors.
Yeah, you got to have a village. So.
That's my best friend found out that she couldn't have children the year that I was pregnant with my first daughter. And that was so hard, me being pregnant, her finding out she can't have children, just biologically, and probably one of the best blessings has been her stepping into my daughter's lives and being there. And it's been a blessing for me. It's been a huge help. It's been a blessing for my kids to have, Auntie Britt, and it's a blessing for her. And it made her realize I can love a child that's not biologically mine just as much. And so now she's super excited to adopt, and, she just recently got married. And I think, like, how great that she can have this relationship with my kids where she can go to their chapel presentation if I can't be there, or she can help me pick up them if I'm away at at an event or something. And it's a blessing for all of us. And exactly, I think about, gosh, when my daughters grow up, they might not want to share everything with me, but maybe they'll share it with Auntie Britt and she'll tell me, maybe, but and so it's so awesome. It's the best.
One other thing that kind of comes to mind is you see women in business now because of social media and they're posting. And I see a lot of them have to, I guess maybe they feel they have to be aggressive and in your face and showing a lot of, just boss babe or, whatever, and cussing and, these types of things to be super tough. And I love that you portray a completely different, that you don't have to be tearing any other women down to be strong, but you also don't have to be, super intense, competition at all costs, after it constantly, that you can be this softer side, caring, loving friend. You're just such a good friend and person. How do you feel about that? I mean, I see that so much, and it kind of, to me, it doesn't bother me, but it just, I feel like, I don't know how they're feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think most of the time when people come across as like needing to feel strong, it's out of an insecurity that they maybe have, or feeling like they need to compete and be like somebody else, or be like a man, or being like, I don't know,
right.
You know what I mean? And I just feel like I love as women, I honestly believe that, like, first of all, if that's how they are, great. Just be who you are.
Right.
Just be who you are.
Yes.
You know, like, I'm extremely competitive, and there are times where I'm just like, we're going to beat them, we're going to do this, and I feel really intense, you know? And then about 30 seconds later, I'm like, oh, the baby, like crying of something, you know? And I feel like that you can just be you. You could just be you. And I feel like as you like realize I don't have to be anyone else, I could just be me, and that's my best gift. Yeah. That's what I bring to the table. And honestly, sometimes I'll share with
enough.
Yes. Sometimes I'll share with my husband, like, am I being too vulnerable? And sometimes I'll be afraid, like, am I being too emotional? Am I being too soft? Am I sharing too much? Am I sharing? I'm always afraid that maybe I'm sharing too much. And he says, that's what people love about you. Mm-hmm. And that's what people are drawn to, because everybody just wants, we crave the real deal.
Yeah. Because there's so much fake
filter
and nonsense.
And I think that even like you said, the idea of, you know, people think like you can have it all or you could do it all. Sometimes sharing, like, I actually did end up in therapy because I was taking on too much. Mm-hmm. I was taking on too much, but it was because I didn't know how to delegate. I thought that was, this was what I was going to say. I thought that being a good mom or being a good wife was doing everything for everyone. Yeah. And I realized that was actually being the worst kind of wife and the worst kind of mom and the worst kind of leader, was trying to take on everything myself. And that was hurting the ability for other people to come and step in and rise up and lead and take over. And I had this conversation with my husband, it was probably about a year and a half ago, where I was at the end of my rope. And I came to him and I was just like, if I keep going,
you had 3 kids.
I had 3
Three's
kids.
The hardest.
Yes, I had 3 kids, and we had some hard stuff happen in my family. Yeah, and I was like working a ton, and I was doing what I wanted, but I was like, and I just came to him and I said, if I keep going at this level, I will end up in the insane asylum. And I was probably exaggerating, you know.
There's some days you just want to be like,
yeah, and I
am done.
Yeah, and I came to him and I was like, I need help, and he was just like, I think he was shocked, because here's what he saw. She's doing it all and it looks like she's doing a good job.
Right.
And it looks like she's having fun doing it. So let her go. And I was having fun doing it, but I was just exhausted, emotionally, physically, mentally. And he said, okay, well, what can I do to help? And I was like, okay, let's find out. And it was he said, there's so many things I want to do to help, but I had my hand on it all. It was so hard for me to let go of control of things, feeling like it was all going to fall apart. It was like, well, maybe I'll take over paying the bills. I could take over grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. I could take over. And I was like, are you sure you could take over grocery shopping? And you know what he did?
You're like, do it. And I bet you won't let it go.
Yes.
Why don't you take it from me?
Exactly. And so guess what he did? He signed up. He signed up for Amazon Fresh or whatever.
Yeah.
And groceries just get delivered to our house. And I was like, why didn't I do that years ago?
They have a different way. As long as it gets done.
As long as it gets done, you know? And I also realized, like, I would feel this guilt of like, okay, because I was at work, that if as soon as I was done with work, I had to go be with my kids because I was already gone from them. And I started to realize, like, actually it's okay for me to work out. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm not building my business or I'm not with my kids, it's okay for me to work out. Mm-hmm. And actually I feel better.
It's important.
Yes, I have to take care of me. Yes. And it was okay for me to go and spend a day at the spa.
I made you do that.
Yes, that was direct orders. Like, well, I'm just being coachable. Jamie said I had to do a day of doing nothing, like scheduled time wasting.
Yes,
and that it was okay to just go to the mall one day and just peruse.
Yeah.
And I actually came back more effective.
Absolutely.
When I took care of me, when I took the time to be healthy, when I took the time to exercise, when I took the time to, go and just read a book that I wanted to read that wasn't about business, that wasn't about parenting, that was just like a book I wanted to read.
That just looked like you enjoy and you laugh.
That it was okay to just go and journal, on the beach. And that those things, made me come back so refreshed and such a stronger wife and such a stronger mom and such a stronger leader.
Yes. So it's so important, guys, that you have balance in faith, family, fitness, and finance. And I know, like, as entrepreneurs and as women, and we have like that control, issues, that we're just going, and we kind of validate in our mind, it's okay that I'm not working, I'll catch up later, or it's okay that I'm not doing this, I'll catch up later. And then the guilt comes in, and then we also look at our bodies like, what the heck happened? Like, and we're just not feeling good about ourselves. And so I come to the same realization, and that's why I coach you guys, especially the females, so much on this, is that what I was doing was, it kind of went in this order. I took care of the business, which meant everybody else. And then I took care of the kids, and then I took care of, my spouse, and then I took care of me. And it shouldn't be that way, because then you're at the end of your rope, burnout, I need help, what do I do next? I don't even like this or myself anymore, And you don't want to get to that point, because you do love it. And you are, you want to be doing these things, but you can't, you're not having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And so reverse that order, where you take care of just being self-full, that you're making sure that you are taking that time for yourself, whether that may be, you and I like the spa, I don't know, whatever they like, but how could you not? Whatever works for you. But, that you're journaling, or that you're reading, or that you're just taking that time, I call them momcations, or mom day offs, or whatever. But and so it's yourself. Well, how can you take care of everyone else? How can you take care of your marriage? How can you take care of your kids if you're a frazzled, burnout, crazy woman, right? So take care of yourself. And then what comes next, you guys, is your marriage. The marriage has to come. That has to be the priority. The best thing that you can do for your kids is show them an example of a mom and dad that are madly in love and can't get enough of each other. Take care of that marriage. Make sure you're doing your date nights. Make sure you're doing your mini honeymoons and those things. And then third is the kids. The kids have to know that your marriage comes first. I think that's healthy. But the kids come third, and you're scheduling your family nights, and you're scheduling your little family days, and that you're one-on-one mommy time, and those things. And then last comes everything else. To me, that's the business, my team, my livelihood, all these things I'm passionate about, the philanthropy that I do. And then how do you have time to worry about all the other crap that's going on in the world? Who freaking cares? You know what I mean? It's like if you just, otherwise you don't have that perspective, what are you worrying about? Whatever media, social media, and other things are putting into your mind. I know, man, I feel so sad for so many ladies out there that are just, they don't even have to have kids to get there nowadays. They're just, I have no time. I'm not where I wanted to be. They're feeling that, I thought I'd be further along than I am right now. That's a dominating thought. I thought I would be married by now. I thought I'd have kids by now. I thought I'd be, making money by now, and these things. And that's the dominating thought, is things that are hurting their self-worth and their self-respect.
And another thing too, even in business, feeling like the thought of, I have to do it all myself, or it doesn't get done the right way if I don't do it. And
control.
Yeah, and I realized that also hurts my business, because it doesn't allow other people to step up and use their gifts, and that it might not get done the way I would do it, but that's okay, and that's good. And even if it messes up, like, who cares? You learn and you grow through all that. Let it go.
So I remember the movie Frozen. If you have kids, you know the movie Frozen. But a lot of times, sometimes multiple times a day, I'm like, let it go, let it go, right? And playing that song in my head when my husband says some crazy stuff like, I'm going surfing, and I have my list, and he has his list, and he's like, I'm going surfing, right? But, or just, something happens with one of the kids, it's just,
let it,
and so we gotta let things go, not stress ourselves out so much, and just be enjoying what we have. We're so blessed. We're so, just kind of be more grateful.
And just being present. I'm really focused, trying to do that.
Yeah. One last question. I think, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. The transitions with having the kids, right? Once you started having kids, because you were already now kind of doing okay. I mean, not great, but I think most of your success actually came during the kids,
while having kids.
Just this recent last baby number 4, you were home for 2 months straight, nursing your baby. I know you had some nursing challenges, and it was a little bit harder than the other three for her to learn to latch on and stuff. And where you're just focused 100% on your kids, their baby, your home, and you didn't step foot in the office, and you made $100,000.
Honestly, like the only thing I can attribute it to is God's goodness and faithfulness. And when I struggled so much thinking like, how can I compete, with all the things I used to struggle with, like, how can I don't know, like, how am I going to do it all or have it all? I would go back to this story in the Bible, a parable. Oh, it actually wasn't a parable. I'd go back to the story in the Bible where the disciples, they weren't disciples yet. They were fishermen, and they're fishing, and they're in this boat. I'm just going to share this. Okay, so whenever I feel like this angst of, I'll struggle with fear of just like this, even though you feel like you've grown so much, and we have, these like moments of having these thoughts that are still there, that run deep, of like fear of financial security and fear of all these things that sometimes will still creep in. And
am I good enough?
Am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Yes. Am I all these things? Exactly. Am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Is a lot sometimes still I struggle with. And so having a baby, I know like I'm going to be out of commission, and I want to be. I don't want to rush back. I want to be able to be home and be with my baby and have the bonding. And
I love that we have, as an entrepreneur, and our business especially, that we can do that.
Yes.
That we can step away to do our philanthropy work. That that there's always going to be something. There's going to be sickness in our family,
health issues, relationship stuff,
something that we can walk away and have peace of mind that it's still going to be running itself. Whereas if I was an employee, I'd be worrying about if I have a job.
Well, that's what so when I struggled with those feelings, I would go to this story in the Bible where the fishermen were in their boat, and they were fishing all day and they caught nothing. And then Jesus comes up and he says, cast your nets on the other side of the boat. It's the same water, it's the same river, lake, wherever they are. And I think that the fishermen were probably like, okay, but they did it. They cast their nets on the other side of the boat, and their nets were overwhelmed with all these fish. So much so, like, all these fish are coming up, right, in their boat. And then Jesus says, I'll teach you to be fishers of men, follow me. And they drop all the fish and they follow him. And it just reminded me that, like, there are going to be times where I'm going to be working and working and working, and it's going to feel like I'm catching nothing. Or I'm doing all the work and it's not coming fast enough. It's not coming fast enough. Sometimes in business it feels like that.
Like, I'm working my butt off.
Yeah, I'm working my butt off. Where are the results? Where are the results, And I will go back to the story and think, like, and honestly, I just felt like, when we're faithful, if you're just faithful in the work and faithful in what you feel like you're supposed to be doing, the results comes.
Yeah.
And I really felt like we wanted another baby, and people thought it was crazy. Like, you already have 3, isn't that enough? And in this day and age,
people it's like, you have 4?
Yeah, like what?
They look like you have 4
like
heads.
An alien. Even when I was pregnant with my 4th, so like, oh, is this your first? And I'd be like, no, it's my 4th. And like, whoa, like, wow, crazy. Like, don't you know, like, how this works?
Sometimes they look at you like, we're overpopulating the earth.
I know, yeah, like I'm doing something wrong.
Don't you know there's like a hole in those?
I know. And so I was like, I just felt like we want another baby. And so we did it. And I felt like, when during my pregnancy, when I felt like I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, and I just felt like, but I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Like,
you have
and
to
I'm
go
doing
with
what
that
I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And then it was like the month that, like, and sometimes feeling nervous, like, is it going to be okay if I step away from my business? Is it going to be okay for me to be home? And then I did it, and it was just like, we had our biggest cash flow month, the month I gave birth.
Yeah.
And I felt like, you know what, it was God's goodness, but it was also me being faithful.
Yeah.
That the years prior, when I felt like, can I do this?
All
the price paying of like, of the sacrifices that I made, and like of getting over my fear and getting over the rejection. This is why I did it.
so that you have control.
Yes. so that I could step away
So good.
and everything runs and I could be with my baby and I had no fear and no worry. In fact, it was abundance.
Yeah.
It was all the fish in the boat. It was like, luckily, it wasn't too much.
That's awesome. One last question. So who or what have been your biggest influences in your success, do you think?
My parents. Honestly, my dad. My dad is the hardest working man, most faithful man. I'm just blessed to have had an example.
Yeah.
Many people don't get that, don't have that. And I don't know why I did, but I'm just grateful. I
love him.
saw my dad, you know, I can remember as a little child, my dad didn't like say a lot of things to me. He didn't like sit down and like teach me lessons. It was just what I watched him do. You know, I remember being a little girl and coming into my parents' room, and it would be early in the morning, maybe 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. And I'd peek in, and my parents had a walk-in closet, and I would see my dad on his knees, Bible open, in prayer. Before my mom's still sleeping, I'd see that, and I didn't think anything of it as a kid, but now looking back, like I saw him start his day with that, And I remember one time going up into his little medicine cabinet in the bathroom, and I saw a little paper that he had written his goals down, and one of them was like, be debt free. And I was like, what, they have debt? I didn't even really know what it meant. But these little goals that he had. And I remember him listening to Zig Ziglar in the car, and Zig Ziglar would talk about like setting goals and thinking positive and all these things that like I just saw. And I saw my dad work 12-hour days my whole life, work half day on Saturday, but he would still come home. He'd come home at like 8 o'clock at night. He would work like, he'd drive us to school in the morning. He'd work 8 a.m., 8 p.m. We always were the family that ate dinner like late because we waited for my dad to come home. We eat family dinner, and we'd sit at the dinner table, and he would say, what was the best part of your day? And we'd go around and each of us tell the best part of our day. And then he'd individually put us all to bed, and he'd read us stories.
So awesome.
And it was like, even though I didn't see him at all the things, like I knew he would tuck me in bed.
Yeah.
Like he was consistent.
You know what I take from that is like, your dad was an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm, yep.
And he was following his dreams, and he
helping
still
a
is
lot of
helping
people.
others. And we get this guilty feeling sometimes, or this feeling of like, is the price I'm paying too high?
Yes.
Is this going to screw up my kids that I maybe didn't tuck them in,
too
or whatever?
much?
Am I working too much? But that example that look how you turned out.
It made me who I am today. And I remember him working Saturdays, half-day Saturdays.
So good.
But he'd wake up early. We'd walk to the beach together before like most people were awake, and we'd yell these positive things out into the ocean, and I just like, those are the moments, like I still had these quality moments with my dad. I remember him having, even though he worked 12-hour days, when I was little, he'd have a 2-hour lunch break, and he'd come home during his lunch break, and he would change into like, just a t-shirt. He'd take off his suit, change into a t-shirt and shorts, and we'd play baseball in the backyard. So cool. And then he'd eat his lunch, and then he'd go put his suit back on and go off to work. And I remember so he was in control of his time. He was an entrepreneur. Yeah. But he helped so many people. But now, growing up, all these people come to me and they say, your dad changed my life. It's because of your dad I'm pain free. It's because of your dad I'm not on medication. It's because of your dad. And I realized
that's what your daughters are going to say about you.
And all those times I was afraid, I'm not here this one night to put them to bed. When now my kids, they go to our office and they see like, man, your mom has influenced me so much. Mm-hmm. Because of your mom, I believe that I can do this or do that. And I'm just so grateful. I just realized the biggest influence has been my parents, and my parents are the most generous people. Thankfully, they weren't too generous with me, so I had to go work, and I'm grateful for that, even though at times I was frustrated. But, my mom is probably the most generous relational person I've ever met. My friends, they wouldn't tell their parents things. They'd come over and talk to my mom, and that's made the biggest impact on me. And it's made me who I am today, is seeing the work ethic, seeing the perseverance, seeing their generosity, seeing them love others boldly and courageously. And, my parents adopted 3 of my siblings are adopted, and my brother and sister, their mom died of AIDS, and they said, well, we'll take them, you know, and I think that that's just made me who I am today. And
yeah, I can see that. Last question, like if you were to tell these women out there one piece of advice or one piece of encouragement as they're growing and trying to build a business and trying to pursue what makes them happy, what advice would you give them?
You are enough and you're not too much.
Absolutely.
Like, you just be whoever you are, like, be you, but keep growing.
Yeah.
And don't compare, like, how am I going to do it like Johanna or like Jamie or like this person? You're like, you don't have to be anybody else other than who you are. And that who you are now isn't going to do that, but that you can grow.
Yes,
and that
that's
your
vision.
Yes, and that your capacity can stretch. And I remember thinking, how am I going to, like, I remember watching you and thinking, like, how am I going to do it like she does? And I don't know if I can. And I don't even know if I want to, you know? But I started to, I did want to, you know, and I realized it was almost like how, you know, when you have your first baby, you think, how am I ever going to love someone as much as my first baby? I remember being like, going to have my second baby and thinking, it's not fair for the second one. I'm not going to be able to love anyone as more than I love Olive. And then it was like, my heart grew. And I realized that's how capacity is too. You know, that like, when you think like, how am I going to have 4? Your capacity grows, because if you're growing, if your mindset's growing and you're surrounding yourself with mentors and you know, developing, you know, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all these things, that like your capacity grows, and that who you are is enough, but who you are right now isn't going to stay the same, and that's exciting.
Awesome. I want to hug you, but my mic's going to fall off. Oh my gosh. You guys, what she just said is so huge. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this time with Johanna, but just remember, there is 2 of you. There's the gal that is, and the gal that's meant to be. And you have the capacity to keep growing and growing and growing, and keep chasing your dreams, you guys. Thank you, Johanna.